Then let's move this over here to the big screen. Okay, and it looks like we are live. We are officially live on YouTube. All right, so guys, what's going to happen is if you're watching on Instagram right now, what's going to happen is in a moment, I'm going to mute the Instagram and I'm going to be having you just go over to the YouTube channel. We're doing these lives on YouTube because, quite frankly, the YouTube is where it will stay longer. People will be able to find it easier. They'll be able to watch it and all that good stuff. So if you're on Instagram, pop over to YouTube. If you're on YouTube, what's up? Drop a comment. Let me know where you're tuning in from. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. And yeah, let's go ahead and mute that. Beautiful. So we are focused on the YouTube page. So guys, I'm going to pick up where I left off. So this morning I did a 2-hour training with the real estate community that I'm a part of. And in that training, we went bonkers. It was a good time. And I said I would talk about a few lessons. So if you guys are here from that training this morning, awesome. Happy to have you. If you weren't there, yeah. So sorry, I'm just looking over real quick. Hey, Supergirl, make sure that you comment the word YouTube, or Super Great, comment the word YouTube, and you'll get the link DM to your YouTube channel. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and let's get started. I said I was going to talk about the 7 laws of investing, the 7 rules of investing. That was going to be the first topic. So I'm covering 3 topics today. What's up, Sydney? Good to see you. I'm covering 3 topics, and we're going to be on here for about an hour, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. We'll see. But the first is going to be the 7 rules of investing. And this is something that I learned from my very first mentor, a gentleman by the name of Pip Stellick. And so Pip, to give you a little bit of background and why I hold him in such high regard, Pip taught from Robert Kiyosaki. He was actually mentored by Kiyosaki directly over 20 years ago. He taught for the Rich Dad, Poor Dad education company and was their #1 producing speaker and trainer throughout almost 2 decades. And so I had the good fortune of running into Pip in October of 2019. That man changed my life. He's actually the reason I got into real estate. So I'm beyond grateful for him. And so Pip taught me these 7 rules of investing that I want to share with you guys. So this is very much a get your pen and pencil ready, because you want to write these down. And regardless of if you're investing in, what's up, Jenny? Regardless of if you're investing in multifamily, residential, hell, even if you're investing in like crypto and stocks, these rules apply across the board. So it's really cool. I love that. So the first rule is really simple. The first rule is we make our money in the buy. So write that down. Rule number 1 is make your money in the buy. And he always would jokingly say, like, no, I'm not telling you to go make money in Dubai. You make your money in the buy. When you go to purchase anything in business, here's effectively how you make money. Buy low, sell high. It's an age-old strategy. It's never going out of business. I am aware that there are things like creative financing that let you buy things at full retail price. However, if you want to be the best investor, what you have to learn how to do is buy things low and sell them high. And the day you purchase, a lot of people strategize in life by saying, I'm going to go and buy high and hopefully sell higher. I'm going to get into something at the peak and pray that it keeps going up. That's not a great way to invest. And quite frankly, it's not a great way to operate. You want to always look for equity. The moment you purchase, what's up, Lindsay? The moment you purchase a property, the moment you buy into an investment, the idea is you want to buy into money immediately. You want to buy into equity immediately. So Pip drilled that rule into my head. And this is why some of you know me from a creative finance community, and inside there, people talk about low equity deals. People talk about buying things for full retail. People talk about buying things that have no equity. And I, quite frankly, tell them that they're all stupid. Like in a very loving way, I say that's not a great strategy, at least not for me, because when you don't have equity, you don't have options. Now, I understand that you may take over a potential investment and you might say, well, it doesn't have any equity in it, but it pays dividends. It pays cash flow. And I'm all about that. However, I want both, not one or the other. So get yourself out of this thinking that you can only have one or the other, and instead recognize that it's possible to have both, and it's actually going to be more beneficial in order for you to have both. So that was the first rule: make your money in the buy. All right. So someone like Lindsay's phenomenal at this. Lindsay targets high equity pre-foreclosure deals. So she'll actually go and look at deals, and she starts to source opportunities based on, is there potential to make a profit on day one when she purchases. So she's buying an asset for $400,000. You might say to yourself, man, is that a good deal? Is that a bad deal? It all depends. If the asset she buys for $400,000 is today worth $700,000, that's a great deal. But what if that asset she bought for $400,000 is actually only worth 300,000? Not a great deal. So you want to make sure that you're buying into money. If you follow that simple rule, I can promise you that you will always make great investments. One thing about why I chose real estate investing as a opportunity vehicle all those years ago versus other opportunity vehicles like stocks and crypto and things of that nature, because those are great assets. With real estate, I had the ability to go and buy something half price today. See, the thing is, if like my Apple stock or Tesla stock is worth $400, I can only pay $400 for it. I can't buy my Tesla stock today if it's evaluated at 400 for 200, but I could find a house that's evaluated at 400 today and buy it for 200 because there's a human that I can communicate with and negotiate with to make that happen. So rule number 1, make money in the buy. Rule number 2, add value. The second rule of investing is add value. You always want to look for a way to add value. And sometimes adding value is as simple as adding value to the property, actually rehabbing the home if it's dilapidated. Adding value is sometimes just simply listening to the homeowner, or it's listening to the person selling the product and being that person that brings good energy and brings hope and solves a problem in their life. And so effectively, when we add value, sometimes it's physically to the actual product we're purchasing, but most times the value we add is to the person selling. So we like to have conversations with the person who's selling the asset that we want to purchase, and we want to figure out what their problem is. We seek to understand what their situation is, what's their problem, what's hurting them, so that we can add value in the form of curing their problem. And the asset that we purchase is nothing more than just like a means of transacting, but the real thing is bringing value to the seller, bringing value to the person that you're buying from. This is critical when you're looking at investing. You want to have the mindset that you are always here to add value. If you can't add value, you're not going to be able to get a good deal. So whenever I work, and guys, this is in any business, quite frankly, this is how you want to think about interacting with the marketplace. When I go to partner with people, when I'm selling products, when I'm selling service, I'm always looking at how can I add value to the other person? Because I understand if I can add value to you, I can make money, right? So the 7 rules of investing. Rule number 1, you make your money in the buy. Rule number 2, add value. Rule number 3, this is specifically for my real estate investors. Rule number 3 is make offers. Okay. When I say make offers, you could put this another way, because I know there are some gurus out there that teach we never make offers, right? One of my mentors told me straight up, he's like, we never make offers. I don't make offers. I don't make offers. And there's a rationale and a context to why they would say those things. However, I'm going to phrase it differently so that it can seep into your mind and you can take action on this. When I say make offers, I'm talking about taking action. So this is the third rule of investing: is you have to take action. You actually need to go out and initiate conversations. You need to go out and look to put properties under contract. You need to go out and offer a purchase price for the asset you want to purchase. You need to really take action to get the ball going, to get the conversation going. See, a lot of times people are like, well, my offer is going to get rejected. Well, cool. That's the start of the negotiation. But if you don't make offers, if you're not going out there starting the conversations and taking action and knocking on the doors and making the phone calls and sending out the emails, you're never going to start the negotiation process. You're never going to actually be able to have the opportunity to invest. And so this is a critical rule: is you need to be making offers. You need to go out and make offers. And so I'm going to really bring the rest of this and focus it around a lot of real estate investing. And it's because that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. And I know most of my audience, you guys are real estate investors, but understand these rules do apply across the board. But let me talk to my real estate investors. If you're not making offers, I know one thing: you're not making money. I can guarantee it. I can guarantee you, like that, without a doubt. If you are not making offers, you are not making money. So, rule number 3 is make offers. Rule number 4, this was the rule I needed to hear in order to start making those offers, is always have exits. And what do I mean by always have exits? I'm talking about like the actual contracts and the agreements that you use in order to make those offers. Because making offers is scary, but you know what's even more scary? Having your offer accepted. I've been there. Right. When they accept your offer and they say yes, and you're like, holy crap, I'm in contract right now to close on $1 million property. Oh my gosh, I'm in contract to buy a $7 million portfolio. Oh my gosh, I'm in contract to buy the ugliest house on the block, and I'm gonna become the owner of the eyesore. Wow, this is scary. And sometimes you're contracting properties and opportunities without ever seeing them. And so, what you want to have in your agreements are things we call exit clauses. Exit clauses effectively allow you to get into contract and get out of contract without losing anything, right? Without forfeiting your earnest money deposit, without having to go and get a loan, without having to do any of those things. Now, we're not ever going to abuse our exits. However, we want to make sure we have exits so that when we're going through our inspection period or our due diligence period, we're able to check out and see, is this what I thought it would be? Is this the opportunity that I thought it would be? And it gives you time to do what you need to do on the back end. And you're not going to waste time. You're not going to drag your feet with, looking for a buyer if you're looking to assign it, or getting the contractors to give you bids if you're looking to fix and flip, or getting property managers to give you bids on what you can rent it for if you're looking to hold on to the property. You want to have your exits there so that you can safely go and do your due diligence before fully closing on a deal. But keep in mind, when you make an offer, you should be offering at prices that make sense for you, which is going to be rule number 5. So, rule number 5 to investing is be embarrassed. Lindsay, you're going to love this one. It's be embarrassed. When you make an offer and you're making a cash offer, you ought to be embarrassed with the offer you're making. If you're not embarrassed by the number that comes out of your mouth, guess what? You are offering too much. I'm being so serious. If you're not embarrassed by the number, doesn't that feel good to know? Like, wow, so I should, when I say I can offer you $150,000 on that home that's worth $500,000 and it feels really awkward, that means you're following rule number 5. You're embarrassed about your offer. Because here's the reality: so many times people aren't embarrassed and they're offering way more than they can actually afford to pay. And then they get themselves into situations where they promise more than they can give. They end up having to back out of the contract. And now the homeowner is in a worse situation because you spent their most valuable asset of time. They can go and make the money back. They can go and do all the other things, but you've taken time away from them. And sometimes if we're dealing with people in pre-foreclosures, if we're dealing with people who have some tough situations and they really need this capital or they really need this problem solved, you spending their time is worse than them taking $20,000 less for the property, $30,000 less for the property. So your offer, you ought to be embarrassed about your offer, because it's easier to start too low and come up than it is to start too high and try to get them to go down even further after you realized you made a mistake. So, rule number 5 in real estate investing, rule number 5 in investing is be embarrassed about your offer. And now, rule number 6, there's 2 rules left. Rule number 6 is be legal. Always, 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 always be legal. So often people try to play in the gray area when it comes to business. Here's my thing: the law is black and white. If I find out like that there's a rule, and let's say everyone else is doing it and getting away with it, I don't care. The law is the law, the law is the law. Be legal. It's not worth it to cheat. It's not worth it to operate in that area of, hey, everyone else is doing it, but because it just takes getting caught one time to completely wipe it all away. It's just not worth it. Just do the right thing. Be legal. You're going to protect your own butt. You're going to protect the seller's butt. You're going to protect everybody involved, your partners. You're going to continue to allow. See, the thing is, when you're not legal, you start running into situations where it's not just affecting you, it's actually affecting the entire industry. It's affecting everybody who's using this opportunity vehicle because now new regulations have to get involved because people are doing the wrong thing. Now we have rules that slow the process down. So people are losing their homes because we have to go through more red tape because somebody was trying to take the shortcut versus just doing the right thing, doing it the right way. And so Pip put this into my brain. He said, always be legal. He said, I don't want to do a strategy that if that strategy involves me having to break a law or that strategy involves me having to hide something from somebody, he's like, I don't want any parts of it. Even if I can make money, I'd rather just go and make money legally because there's a lot of legal money to be made. Always be legal. And rule number 7, this one Pip learned from his mama. She said, always have integrity. And ain't this one the truth? You always want to operate with integrity. The reason being is you can lose money and you can earn that back. You can lose an asset, you can lose a house, and you can go and get a new one. I mean, houses catch fire, insurance will pay out. Like there's certain things you can get back. When you lose integrity, the issue is you can't bring that back. When you break trust and you let people down in such a meaningful way and you hurt them, see, those create these scars and those create cracks in relationships that never heal back the same way, right? You now introduce doubt where there never was doubt. And that doubt will forever linger and that relationship will forever be soiled. And so you don't want to ever risk your reputation. You don't want to ever risk your word because it's with you from start till finish. So you always want to operate with integrity. And what is integrity? Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's watching. Integrity is doing what you said you were going to do. You want to operate with integrity. So these are the 7 rules of investing. I think it was Jenny this morning who had asked, what are the 7 rules of investing? I've been following these rules since October of 2019, and they have served me well. They've allowed me to accumulate a multi 7-figure portfolio. They've allowed me to do over 7 figures in transactions. They like these rules, and cooler than just allowing me to do it, it's allowed me to do it with peace of mind. I've never once had to question. Actually, that's a lie. Let me explain this, Jenny. In the very beginning, when I started off wholesaling, I had some other mentors involved who weren't Pip, and I had multiple voices in my head. Thank God Pip got to me first, but I still was entertaining some other voices in those early days. And one of those voices, they meant well. However, they told me that it's okay to lie when wholesaling because I was a wholesaler and they were helping me out with sales. And they said, it's okay to lie. You're just telling little white lies to get the deal done. It's for their good. And I started to believe them, but internally, something didn't feel right. That idea that it was okay to lie, it never sat well with me. And so what was going on is I was making calls and I was beginning to generate leads and I was beginning to get contracts and I was beginning to sell contracts. And I was starting to make more money than I ever made, but something wasn't feeling right. It felt off. I didn't feel good about it. In fact, I remembered one day getting the biggest assignment check that I had ever made on a single deal. It was for a little over $40,000. And I remembered like texting my mentor, like, hey, I made this big check, sent him the screenshot. And he's like, yeah, heck yeah, dude. And I just remembered personally, I I felt empty that day. It was such an odd feeling. I felt so empty. I remembered like thinking like, what's wrong with me? Like the check just hit my bank account. That's the most amount of money that's ever come in at once. And I even had a person on my sales team. I got to pay them their first assignment. They made 6 grand off that deal for literally just connecting the dots. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I feel good? This is what you always said you wanted. Like you wanted to be able to make a $10,000 check. You just made a $40,000 check. Why are you not feeling good about this? I went to the barber because I was like, you know what? Let me go get a haircut. That usually cheers me up. And I get this haircut and I still don't really feel all types of right. And instead of going to my car and like getting in immediately like I normally do, what's up, Sam? I decided to just walk around the corner. And as I'm walking around the corner, there's a sandwich shop. If you guys know, the Jimmy Subs or whatever the sandwich shop is, Johnny Subs, whatever those like chain of sandwich stores are. I'm not a big sandwich guy. I see that store and I see there's a dude hanging out on the outside of it, a homeless guy. And I just look over at him. I'm not really hungry, but I just say, there we go, Jimmy John's. I look over at him and I say, "Hey man, are you hungry?" And he goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Hey, what do you want?" And the guys inside kind of tell me, like, they kind of call me inside. They're like, "Hey, like, we don't want him inside because the guy's smelling." And they're like, "He's been hanging out outside." I'm like, so I just pop my head back out. I'm like, "Hey, what do you want? I'll go buy it for you." And he gives me his order. I buy a meal for him. I'm like, "Hey, you thirsty? You want a drink too?" Get him a drink. And I'm just sitting with him outside as he's eating, and he's giving me his story because I was curious. I was like, "So what's going on with you?" And the guys, full transparency, that dude was out of it. I don't know if he was on drugs or what, but I mean, he was mentally not all there. He started telling me about how the government's after him and demons are after him and all these different things. So he wasn't in his right state of mind. He wasn't really there in control. However, it still felt good to be of service and to just genuinely be there to connect with another human. And what I started to find was that started to pull me out of my funk. It was me seeking to be in service of someone. And it made me start to look and reflect on the deal that I had just done. And that $40,000 check, the reality is the deal I wholesaled was a property that when I had purchased it, there was a family living in the house. Now, this family had been paying rent. They're well below market, but we were flipping this deal to a hedge fund. And the hedge fund wanted to buy the property totally vacant. And so the purchase needed us to have that home vacant. And so the seller, we told him, like, "Hey, we need those people out." And unfortunately, someone else got involved and told the seller at some point that the people could stay. So then the people were told they could stay. And I was like, "Well, no, they've got to go." And so I ended up having to get on the phone with these tenants who were good people and telling them that they needed to leave. And the only reason they needed to leave was so that I could make a profit. I wasn't solving a problem. I was creating a problem for a family who didn't deserve it. And the interesting thing, and I don't really think I ever told this story before. The interesting thing about that was they had a special needs son, a special needs like adult son, like a young adult, probably like in his 19, 20 years old, who lived at home with them. And again, the house was in California and they were paying drastically under market. And I remembered just thinking to myself, I don't ever want to do a deal like that ever again. I don't ever want to do a deal where I'm I'm not solving a problem. I'm creating a problem for another person. I don't want to ever make transactions occur like that because that's not right. That's not living with integrity. That and I see why Pip made these rules. And so, it felt weird telling the homeowners to leave and, just not about that life, not about it at all. And so, guys, I'm telling you right now, operating with integrity, that rule number 7, is probably the most important rule. Like, you don't want to operate without any of these rules, but rule number 7 especially. Like, it's not worth it to make money if in return you are selling off a piece of your soul in that transaction. It's just not worth it. I'm hoping that resonates with you guys. So if anyone, do me a favor, if you caught all 7 rules, drop the 7 rules in the comments so that people can also catch it there. I want to see who is paying attention. But I love that. What's up, Josh and Laura? Good to see you guys. Good. And success is sobriety. What's going on, Chris? Long time no see, brother. All right, let's keep going here. So I said I was going to talk about the 7 laws of investing. I said I was going to talk about the bucket system. Now, this bucket system, uh, guys, here's the thing. I'm going to be talking about the bucket system twice today. Right now, when I talk about it, I'm just going to be verbally explaining it. Later today, I'm going to be doing a live Zoom inside of my school community. And there I'm going to be busting out the iPad and I'm actually going to draw out the bucket system and help you understand where you are in that bucket system. So if you have not yet joined the school, join the school. If someone can, I see Victor in here, but I'm sure Victor's out door knocking or driving around. But if someone has my school profile, drop it in the comments for me. And that way, if someone's wanting to join into that, that's going to be later today at 3 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Um, I love it. Sam says, let me put Sam up. Sam's one of my favorite people in the world. So Sam says, love this. You can always make more money, but you can't reclaim lost parts of your soul. Something quick side note, guys. Sam saying one of my best friends, one of my favorite people. I don't know if he knows the moment that he like really solidified himself in my life was this was a little after we had met, Sam. You had an opportunity where a very, very wealthy, very prominent, very influential real estate investor invited you out to an event in Vegas. And they flew you out on the private jet. They had you up in the penthouse. And they then proceeded to have like a party that night. And I remembered in the midst of that party, you saw that these individuals who were married men, you saw them begin to do things that married men should never be doing. And rather than saying, you know what, let me just keep my mouth quiet because this is an amazing opportunity. These are people who are going to be able to help me grow. You decided that no, I'm out in the moment, like of your own, like with your own resources, you left and you didn't have it like that back then, but you decided to walk away from that situation and you made a decision that most people say they would make, but never actually do. When I saw that and you told me about that, I was like, Sam has integrity. That's everything to me. So absolutely love that. Deborah says the school community is in the link below. And I love it. Victor says he's listening in the background. So let me keep going here. I'm going to talk about this bucket system, and I'll share the link here for you, Jenny. Let me pull it up real quick. All right, so Jenny, I just put the link in the chat. Sam is absolutely the man. All right, let's talk about the bucket system. This bucket system is something that I learned from a really amazing mentor of mine. And I give credit where credit's due. So that mentor is Pace Morby. And Pace, this was a lesson. I personally think this is the most valuable lesson he's ever taught me. And it wasn't on a Zoom call. It wasn't at a mastermind. It was in the most odd place. It was at a dinner one night. We were just having dinner, and it was him, myself, and I think like two other guys, super low key. This was a few years ago. And he said to me, he sat me down, he said, how many things do you think I focus on? And I said, shucks, man. Like, you got wholesaling, you got creative financing, you got the YouTube channel, you got Sunday service wholesale hotline, you got your Instagram, you got your community, you've got the masterminds, you've got the travel. I mean, I don't know, maybe like 10 things on the low side is what you focus on. And he looked at me and he said, I focus on one thing. Now, if any of you know Pace, if you've heard of that name and you know him and you follow him on social media, you know it would be really hard to convince anybody that that man only focuses on one thing. But that was his perspective of himself. And he said, let me elaborate and let me explain. And this altered my paradigm so drastically. And I'm hoping it does the same for you. He said, are you familiar with the bucket system? I said, no, I never heard of that. He said, okay, well, check this out. He said, I had a sales manager working for me, a sales director working for me. You might remember him. His name was Tino. Tino, shout out to Tino Luna. I love Tino. Tino was another one of those guys who influenced me so drastically when I first got started. And he said, you know, Tino at that time had just decided to branch off and begin building his own business. And so on their exit conversation, Pace had asked Tino, what's the most valuable lesson that you feel you've learned being here? Was it sales? Was it business structure, hiring, firing? What was it? And Tino said, it's actually the bucket system you talked to me about. And he said, that's interesting. The bucket system is the most valuable lesson you learned from me in these last few years. So I say to Pace, all right, so like explain to me what the bucket system is. Well, the bucket system looks a little something like this. He said, imagine at the top level up here, I've got this bucket. Now, this one bucket is it's really like a well. And we all know how wells work. You have to start cranking and cranking and cranking and cranking. And you keep cranking until eventually water comes flowing out. And as water flows out, you're catching the water in the bucket. And so he said, for me, my bucket here represents my wholesale business. So I'm actively cranking on the well. I'm cranking to make this bucket fill up. And that's my active income. And as the money fills up in this bucket, as the water fills up in this bucket, eventually what begins to happen? We know if I started pouring water, at some point, water would begin to flow over, right? And that overflow of water is essentially what we call profit. And what a lot of people do is they have a bucket in their life. It's their active income. It could be their wholesale business. It could be their W-2 job. It could be whatever. And when the overflow begins to come, that's what they live their life with. They will go and they will buy, you know, food. They spend their money on their rent, their mortgage, their cars, their travel, their vacation, their clothes. All of the things come from the overflow from that first bucket. And Pace said, here's what I do a little bit differently than everybody else. He said, I take the overflow from my bucket and I let the overflow from bucket one on level one pour into buckets on level two. So there are buckets, I put buckets beneath this bucket. So now when it flows over, right, if you guys can imagine this, when it flows over, there's another bucket down here where my hand is to capture the overflow. And he said, now the characteristic of the buckets on level two is those buckets need to be what we call self-producing and self-replicating buckets. And so those are things like rental properties. And he said, so I own rental properties. I own cash flowing creative finance deals. And I purchased those creative finance deals with the overflow that comes in from my wholesale business. And so on level two, the interesting thing is it's getting income, it's getting capital from the top bucket, but also because these properties produce their own income, they are like filling themselves up from the bottom as well. So they're being filled up from two directions, top and bottom. Now on level one, that bucket is only being filled as long as you are paying attention to it and cranking on it. The minute you stop paying attention and cranking on it, the minute that bucket stops getting filled. And he said, when I start to add new buckets on level two, my attention never comes off of bucket one. He said a lot of people, they start to acquire buckets on bucket two, but they treat bucket two buckets like it's bucket one, and they start bringing their eyeballs and attention down to bucket two. But the reality, he said, is if I stop cranking on bucket one, I'm going to lose the opportunity to acquire more buckets on bucket two. So I'd rather lose level two buckets and always keep level one bucket secure because level one produces the opportunity for level twos. And I can add as many level two buckets as I want on level two. These are all passive income strategies. These are all passive income assets. These are all passive income buckets, self-filling buckets. Now, he said what people will begin to do here, you have some of the more sophisticated investors, they understand about level two. And what they'll start to do is they'll start to take the overflow from level two and they'll start to live off of that, right? So you take your passive income from your real estate and now that's what you go and use to buy groceries and pay your rent and pay your mortgage and all that fun stuff. But he said, I don't even do that though. What he said is I take the overflow from level two and I create a level three bucket system. And now he said the thing is with level three buckets, here's the reality. At level two, these are passive income assets. These are self-filling buckets, but these are relatively safe and secure passive income assets. Therefore, I can go and easily borrow and use OPM and OPC to acquire other people's money and other people's credit. Let's understand how an investor, a real investor, thinks. Because I know I can use other people's money and other people's credit, I don't actually need to take the overflow from bucket one and directly use it to acquire bucket two. And so what it allows me to do is it allows me to deviate the overflow from bucket one down to bucket three. And not only am I using level one bucket overflow, I'm also going to use level two bucket overflows to then fund level three buckets. And level three buckets, these are our high risk, high reward buckets. These are the sort of investments that are, we're going to invest into a YouTube channel and we're going to drop $1 million into developing the YouTube channel. We're going to invest into hosting in-person events and we're going to invest $1 million into that in-person event. See, it's a lot more difficult to get somebody to lend you money on those higher risk investments. It's like me saying, hey, would anyone like to lend me money? I'm going to go invest in crypto. You know, there's a potential for me to earn a heck of a lot, but you also know there's a potential for me to lose all of it. And so he explained to me that at level 3, we let the overflow from level 2 and level 1 pour into level 3 buckets. And then as level 3 buckets begin to pan out, then there's one more bucket tier system. And this one is my favorite bucket because he called it the fuck it bucket. He said at level 4, the overflow goes into the fuck it bucket. And that's the bucket where you can just say fuck it, right? Like that's FU money. That's the sort of funds that you can do whatever you want with, and nobody can control you. You can't be purchased. You have effectively you've taken yourself off the market. Nobody can buy your time anymore. They can't tempt you with, hey, we'll give you this amount of money to come do this thing that you don't want to do. You can't be tempted. You have freedom at that level. You can now say, I want to build an orphanage, and I can do so without thinking because the money in that bucket is so moated and so protected, that you can be a complete ignoramus with that money and you still will not screw up your kingdom. And now here's the best part of all of this. And this was the part that just absolutely changed my perspective on everything. And shout out to Sam Singh. Sam is a prime example of this because I'm watching him create this bucket system in his life so damn effectively. With all these buckets, let's imagine that level 2 has 100 properties and 100 assets on it. And let's say level 3, you have a YouTube channel, an Instagram channel, a TikTok, a Facebook, and let's say you've got 6 of these high risk, high reward strategies. And then you got your level 4 bucket. So you've got 107 buckets underneath you. Where is your attention? If you were listening, you would know that your attention never leaves bucket 1. Even if bucket 1, you started off wholesaling and now you've got a new bucket, your attention always stays on level 1 because that's your active income. That's your active work. That's the thing that creates multiple opportunities for you. This morning, I taught a lesson about this where I shared about Alex Rodriguez of the Yankees. Many of you know A-Rod as one of the greatest baseball players to have ever played the game. And Alex, a lot of people don't know, is a prominent and extremely sophisticated real estate investor. The man has thousands of units. And I'm not talking about a real estate investor who is just taking money, excess cash, and throwing it into syndications and acting as a private money lender who doesn't actually understand the business. He goes out himself and he acquires property. He negotiates deals. He puts them together. He is a prominent real estate investor. I didn't know this a few years ago. I only found this out when I was down with him we were in Florida, in Miami area. And right there we go. So look at that. Sam says, I'm going to put this up on the screen. See, I thought it was even less. Sam says, when we first saw him, he had owned over 20,000 units. This was, I believe, 2.5, almost 3 years ago. So I imagine that his portfolio is even larger since. And what was fascinating is he was sharing a story about how this is Alex Rodriguez. Alex Rodriguez was sharing a story about how he was able to gain the audience of none other than Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, the greatest investor of our time. To give you some context on what an achievement this is, Warren Buffett every year opens up his calendar to a single person to have a 1-hour lunch. And that 1-hour lunch is raffled off. And typically the raffle starts at $250,000 for that 1-hour lunch. Recently, I think someone had paid $2.8 million for that hour to sit down with Warren and have lunch. Alex Rodriguez gets the opportunity to go and have lunch for Warren outside of this 1-hour lunch allotment raffle. And so Alex, knowing he's about to sit down with the greatest investor of our generation, starts getting himself prepared, starts getting all the stats and all the numbers on his investments, starts talking about the things that the business opportunities he's looking at. And when he sits down with Uncle Warren. He says, this is what I got going on, and I got this many units, and we got this, and we're looking at acquiring this, and this, and he shuffles it all out. And Warren just kindly lets him talk. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And finally, when Alex is out of things to say and he's like, okay, well, what do you think I should invest in next? Right? Like, great question to ask the world's greatest investor. Uncle Warren says, "Is it okay if I give you a little bit of advice? Can I tell you something?" And Alex, yeah, of course, a little shocked, thinking like Warren would jump right into business with him. He said, "Why are you in the room with me?" I don't know. Because I'm looking to understand how to better invest and get the best ROI. And you have Berkshire Hathaway and you and Charlie Munger. He goes, no, 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 no. Why are you in the room? Like, pay attention to this. He says, you have my audience. I'm a hard man to get the audience of. And the reason let me tell you why you're sitting in front of me right now, having a one-on-one with me. It's because you are Alex Rodriguez of the Yankees, one of the best baseball players alive. You and I are here because you are the best at what you do. Your only job is to keep being the best baseball player, because look at that. You being the best baseball player has given you an audience with me, something that other people have been trying to do. People have to pay millions of dollars to do. You being the best at one thing has opened up all these other opportunities for you. So instead of trying to go and chase after 14, 15, 20, 30 different little things, instead do one thing and let those 20 or 40 or 50 or 100 or 1,000 opportunities chase after you. Imagine that. What if you decided you were only going to do one thing and you were going to let opportunities chase you instead of you chasing opportunities? If you started living like that, I would become convinced that you are Sam Singh. I'd be convinced that you were like a part of the Singh destiny and you're a part of the Singh bloodline, because that's what he's doing. And because he's doing that, opportunities are chasing him. When I look at Caroline, that's what Caroline is doing. And because Caroline is doing that, opportunities are beginning to chase her. When I look at Alex Rodriguez, that's what Alex Rodriguez is doing. And opportunities chase him. When I look at Alex Hormozy, that's what Alex Hormozy is doing. And opportunities chase him. When you decide that you are going to get serious about your life, you're going to get serious about your skill, you're going to get serious about yourself, and you're going to make a decision to cut all the other things off, watch how the opportunities begin to chase you. You guys hear me talk about law of attraction. Did it ever occur to you that you don't have to chase it, it will chase you? If it hasn't, I want you to add that paradigm to your thinking. Let's have a paradigm shift today. Okay, final thing. Plateau of latent potential. So Jenny, shout out to you. You inspired this one this morning. So right as we were getting ready to wrap up our call this morning, I think it was Jenny that said it. It might have been Jenny or it might have been James. Actually, it was James. We spoke about this idea that there are seasons where you're doing the work, and it feels like nothing is happening. And you're watching your friends, you're watching other people just seem to excel. And you start to question and you start to doubt and you start to worry and you start to think, maybe I ought to be doing something different. And because of that, you don't stay focused on being the one thing. You start picking up multiple other things because reality tells you, logic tells you, I need to make something happen, anything happen at this point. And you start entertaining new directions. But what the plateau of latent potential teaches us is that when change happens, change is instantaneous compared to a lot of people believe that change takes time. It doesn't take time. Let me explain. Let me give you some context behind this. I want you to imagine this scenario. Imagine what I'm holding. This is like a little rock, but imagine this rock were an ice cube. And let's imagine that this ice cube is sitting inside of a room, and that room, it's tempered at 25 degrees Fahrenheit. If you guys know anything about ice, ice freezes, water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And let's say I want to make this ice cube melt. So I go and I start to play with the thermostat and I go from 25 to 26. and the room goes up to 26 degrees. And I look at the ice cube and nothing's happening. I go from 26 to 27, nothing's occurring. 27 to 28, nothing. 28 to 29, 29 to 30. And I'm looking at that ice cube and nothing is happening. And I'm starting to think to myself, like, geez, like all this work of changing the heat in the room, warming the room up, it's not doing anything. But I continue. I have faith. I go from 30 to 31, 31 to 32. And at 32, as it starts to creep just above 32, what do I see? I start to see a little droplet of water coming off the side, beading off the side. And 32 to 33. And now that bead is starting to get a little bit bigger and a little bit more beads are coming. Now, my question to you is, did the work only happen at 32 degrees? Like, is everything before that useless? No. Because the reality is the room needed to rise in temperature up until the point where the change occurs, where the change is visible. But in that moment, when the change happens, it's instantaneous. When you go from that 31 to 32 degree, that's where the change happens in that instant. But it took raising the temperature all the way up until that point. And so there are times where you're doing work and you are effectively trying to melt the ice cube in your life, but you're starting off at 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And the temperature change from 5 degree to 10 degree is work. It's doing something, but you don't see the change occurring because you haven't hit the plateau of latent potential. The change you're looking to see occur happens at that turning point. You've got to build up enough energy to that point before the change, the catalyst actually takes off. And so I'm here to remind you of that, because if you forget about that, what ends up happening is you're going to do all this work going from 5 degrees to 31 degrees. And you're going to spend all of that energy. And it was energy well spent, but you stopped. You stopped just a moment too soon. You stopped 1 degree short of having what you wanted. You stopped 1 degree short of having what you wanted. And so recognize that if it hasn't happened yet, it just simply means you have not hit the plateau of latent potential. You haven't crossed over that line yet. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And the thing is, we all start in different places. You might say, well, Sam got it in 4 months. Well, I've been working at it for 8 months. What's wrong with me? Well, the truth is you don't know what temperature Sam started at. Sam could have started at 29 degrees. So although you both came into the same room, you didn't come in from the same place. There are skills, there are experiences, there are things that happened in that person's life before you and them arrived in the same room. It's kind of like when I went to college. What I noticed was I was in the same room, I was in the same class with a lot of these students, but we were not coming from the same place. Some of these kids were entitled. They didn't really have to work for much. And although we were in the same class, our work ethics drastically different. Our knowledge base drastically different. See, I had worked a lot harder to get to my place in school than they had. And didn't mean I was the hardest working, right? There are some other kids who were foreign exchange students who they grew up in poverty in another country. And us being in that room, me and them were not in the same place, right? Like I worked hard, but I worked hard in America. They worked hard in a third world country. To think that me and them were in the same place, on the same footing, that would have been a mistake. And so if I had begun to compare myself to them, it would have been a fool's errand. I would have been wasting time comparing myself now to somebody who is starting at a different temperature point. And although neither of us had passed the plateau of latent potential, where they only needed 3 more degrees, I may have needed 30. And whereas I may have only needed 30 more, someone else may have needed 300. Now, wherever you are, this is why it's so damn critical to get focused and clear on what it is you actually want. Because if you understand what it is you want, you're willing to put in the 300 degrees of effort. You're willing to put in 600 degrees of effort. You're willing to put in whatever effort is required in order to make it happen. You're willing to pursue. And so I'm going to end on this note here. We've heard about the whole concept of ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be given unto you. And I love that. I mean, a person ought to look into a formula that says ask and you shall receive. I mean, you really got to look into something like that. If you're telling me that I can have what I want in my life by asking, yeah, I'm gonna do some research and see if there's some truth behind this. And so that formula says ask, seek, and knock. And so asking is, understand this, asking is knowing what you want. What do you want for Christmas, kid? Well, I want this. A kid has to be able to know. Remember when you were a kid and Christmas time was rolling around, and hopefully you had someone in your life ask you, "What do you want for Christmas?" And your brain would shoot off, and you would start dreaming up all the things, and you would start writing it down, and you would start cutting it out in newspapers, and you would do all the things to clearly define to the world what it is. This is what I want. I want this bicycle with this color, with these rims, with this thing. And I'm going to put the baseball card inside of it. And I'm going to ride around and like, think about how excited you got about what you wanted. You knew how to ask. You still do know how to ask. You just haven't practiced it. Right? Like you didn't lose it. It's not a habit anymore. You forgot how to ask. So go back to asking, get clear on knowing what it is you want. But that's only the starting point. I can't just sit there and just ask. At some point, I got to do something. And this is where seek comes in. And I learned a new way of explaining this today that I'm excited about. I'm going to be talking about this one for a little bit, actually. So seek. The word seek, I want you to replace the word seek with pursue. So know what you want and then pursue it. Go after it. Right? Like go when a person starts pursuing something. Here's what this is what my mind thought of. I come back and I think of like relationships. And if I want a girl, right? It's one thing to see her and be like, "Damn, she's beautiful. She's pretty. Oh my gosh." Right? I want her number. I want to date her. That's asking. But I've got to take it past ask and I got to go and I got to pursue, right? I got to go and talk to her. I got to go and I'm going to write her a letter. I'm going to ask her out on a date. I'm going to see if she wants to. I got to go and pursue. I got to get flowers. I got to do something, anything. I got to go pursue. Then here's the interesting thing about a pursuit. Does it guarantee that you're going to get the catch right away? No. But I love the word pursue because it means I'm going to keep going until when I'm in pursuit of something, in pursuit of happiness. It means I don't stop until I obtain it. In pursuit of treasure, in pursuit of greatness, in pursuit of the girl, the guy, the job, in pursuit of the answer. It means I keep going until when? Until I'm holding it in my hand. So ask and then seek. Seek is pursuing. I freaking love that. And then knock and it shall be opened onto you, right? Like you keep pursuing until that door cracks and then you go inside. You have it. And so don't give up the pursuit. What makes the pursuit easy, what makes the pursuit obtainable, I'm not going to say easy because it's not going to be easy. What makes the pursuit obtainable is having a true passion and a true desire for it, for the thing you're pursuing. When you're in love with what you're doing, you're willing to pursue it till the ends of the earth. When you are chasing after something, and I'm going to throw a little spiritual spin on this for a minute, right? Because this is my pastor taught me that God is romantic. He said, God's romantic. He said, God is pursuing you. He said, he is after you and nobody, like he is just after you and he will pursue you forever. And I said, ain't that interesting? That he is like constantly wanting to get closer, constantly chasing after, constantly wanting to deepen that bond. And when you pursue something with that level of love, it means it's non-ending. You're willing to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And this will be something that you're involved with till the day you die. And the people we look up to in this world, those are the people who are pursuing their dreams, pursuing happiness, pursuing joy, pursuing fulfillment, pursuing a project, a passion. I'm arguing that you should be one of those people. I'm suggesting that life would be better spent being one of those people versus someone who just casually goes along with the flow and, just arrives safely at death, right? Like what's the point of getting there safely at death? And so pursue, truly lock in and pursue. and ask yourself this question. I've been offering this question to everyone, and I'm going to continue to offer it to everyone. In 2025, what's the one thing that you can focus on? What's the one thing that you can pursue that if you obtain that one thing of your pursuit, it would make all of your other goals, all of your other desires easier or irrelevant? Like if I get this thing, I don't even want the other things. Or if I get this thing, all the other things become so much easier to acquire. Like Alex Rodriguez, if he becomes the best baseball player in the world, you mean I get more meetings with Warren Buffett and people want to sponsor me and people want to give me money and people want to sell me their building because I'm Alex Rodriguez and they want to be able to say, I sold my building to Alex Rodriguez? So he identified the one thing. Warren Buffett helped him re-identify that, hey, look, if you just do this one thing, all the other things, all the other doors begin to open for you and your goals begin to pursue you with as much drive as you're pursuing them. And then I want you to ask yourself, along with that question, what is it that I can do that I can be world class at? What is it that I can do that I can be world class, that I can be the best at? You know what I find is many people don't ever seek being world class. And I think the reason they don't seek being world class is because they're working on the wrong things. Like there are people out there who are world class at video games. There are people out there who are world class at ping pong. There are people out there who are world class at doing graffiti art. And see, you think, well, if I don't know, like if it's not being a lawyer or a doctor or a real estate investor or a multifamily, like it's not worth doing. What's worth it to you that if you can be world class at that thing, you don't care about what anyone else thinks? Spend some time with that question for yourself. So I hope you guys gotten some value from this today. Jenny, it's good to see you. Jenny, you and I got to spend basically 3 hours together today. If you're new to the YouTube channel, do me a favor. Make sure you hit the like button. There's a little thumbs up on the screen. If you can, make sure you hit that like button. The reason I ask you to do that, there's a purpose. I want you to understand why, because not just for me, but also for other creators on YouTube. When you hit that like button, what you're doing is you're telling the algorithm that this content was valuable to you. And so it's going to show you more content like this. Even if it's not my videos, it will begin to show you more content along this line. And then also what YouTube's going to say is, oh, Jenny really liked this video. And I see the profile of somebody else, of James, and James has similar watching taste. His data looks just like Jenny's. We should show James videos like this. And so it actually helps bring this kind of positive content to other people. So you're actually doing other people a favor, total strangers, right? And if you're not into helping strangers, I get it. I do. I like helping strangers. And so if you want to help a stranger, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if it's your first time here. And when you subscribe, turn on, there's a little down arrow on the subscribe button next to it. Make sure you turn on all notifications because I'm going to be going live every day. It's going to be at different times. And this way, when I go live, you'll actually get a notification on your phone that I'm going live. If the all notifications aren't turned on, you're not going to know when the lives are happening. So good. I love that. And then the final thing here, if this really resonated with you, share it. Share the value. One of my favorite things, and some of you heard Caroline talking about this morning with me. We were saying that when she started living with me and we were all living together, I had a group chat of me, her, and other roommates. And in that group chat, I would share videos that I found valuable. I would share articles like, hey guys, this was super impactful for me. And so I was sharing the resources I was coming across. And as a result, they started to have paradigm shifts. So if you're getting value, if you're having those paradigm shifts, share the gift with a friend. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow for day 17. And later today at 3 o'clock Arizona time, I'm going to be doing a Zoom call inside of my community. Totally free. I dropped the link already. I'll put it again in the chat. It's inside my school community. I'm going to be doing a live training inside there with the bucket system. So we're going to be going a little bit more in depth on the bucket system. I'm going to have a whiteboard session with my iPad. And if you have some questions about the way your buckets need to be set up, Come inside there and we will dissect and basically backwards engineer your buckets so we could give you a blueprint and a framework for 2025 and beyond. Guys, love you. Appreciate you all. And I will see you here tomorrow. And I'll see some of you at 3 o'clock Arizona time.